Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vicky Rands. I am your teacher for physiology. I am from America. I'm probably the only teacher you've ever had from America, right? So let me tell you about myself. I will tell you about the class, and then we'll start talking about what physiology is. I count 111 seats. There's supposed to be 113 people in this class, which means that every time the class, all the seats will be full, okay? Every class is going to be filmed, so if we have to, we'll move the cameras to the aisles so that they don't take up the seats if we need them, okay? Okay. So first, let me tell you about me. That's me getting a PhD from Tulane University, which is called the Harvard of the South in America. I did not go back to school to get my PhD until more recently, so that's an old-looking student there you'll see getting a PhD. I have two children. They're both boys. My older son, Ian, is graduated in computer science. He's married, and I am now a grandma, and I'm very excited about this. So in my small Chinese, I can say wo shen nai nai. This is my husband and my younger son, Kenny. They came to China with me. My husband works for an oil company, which is why we really came to China. But since I was going to be here, I wanted to have something to do, and I taught when I was in America. My son, Kenny, has just returned to the United States to finish his degree in mechanical engineering. He came to Sichuan University for 2 years and did the Chinese program. So he got to be pretty good at it, much better than me. I also have a dog. His name is Sparky. And he just made 12 years old, so now he is an old dog. Okay. This is my granddaughter. Her name is Ellie Rose. And the last thing to know about me is that I am a cancer survivor. That's the only picture of me with no hair in existence, because I was not a pretty bald person. I was a pretty ugly bald person. But anyway, I've been cancer-free now for 6 years. So I am like you in that I have come to China as a visitor and also as a resident. So I've done a few things since I got here. One is that I have been teaching in this building. This is the second year I have been here. In the spring, I teach Chinese students, graduate students, and in the fall, I teach the international students. I have gone to Sichuan cooking school twice, and I can actually make a few things like mapo tofu and ganbao jiding and yushan chedze. So I actually have learned how to cook a little bit for Chinese cooking. I participate in 2 philanthropic, that means charity organizations. One of them is called Hopeful Hearts. We actually supply the money for heart operations for children, okay? And this was the red dress run, so everybody dresses in red. This is my friend, my son and his friends that I made go with me, so they had to all dress up. I've tried to do some travel around China, which I hope you do too. I went to see the Terracotta Warriors, and I also went to a place 3 hours from here by Wencheng, which is where the 2008 earthquake was. And this is called the Chang minority. This is one of the Changjai villages. And I also help an animal organization, which is called RAR. It's Animal Rescue. And that's us selling all kinds of animal-related things so that we could raise money for foster and adoption of animals in China. Okay. For this class, first of all, you need to have a book. Not just any book. You need to have either the 6th edition of the Byrne Physiology book, or you may have the 5th edition of the Byrne Physiology book, okay? If your book is this thick, that is not a textbook, that's a primer, that's a refresher for somebody who already knows physiology. If you had an older student sell you one of these itty-bitty little books, you are going to be so sorry, okay? So, there are 2 copies of this book at the library, okay, here on campus. You can get this as an e-book, as an e-textbook for about 120 RMB, okay? So you don't have to invest the money in a hard copy if you don't want to, but you have got to have this book. When you come up to me halfway through the class and you want to argue about your answer on a test, if you are not getting your answer out of this book, then I am not going to listen to you, okay? And I did have that happen last year. So number one, find yourself the book. I know that there's a couple of websites that have e-textbooks for cheap. I know last year that several of the students were talking about one that was in India that they used. So talk among yourselves, but just make sure that this is the book you have, okay? You will need to have a notebook and a pencil or a pen for this class. Sometimes people don't want to do that, or they think that they are taking the notes in their head, or they think that they're going to go back to the PowerPoint, and they're going to use the PowerPoint to get the information, okay? One thing you'll find when I start actually talking about the physiology, I have a lot of pictures. Those pictures don't necessarily have a lot of words on them. You will need to write the words down, okay? So one of the things I usually do is I make sure that the monitors have each PowerPoint before the class starts, like sometimes several days before the class. That way you can put it on your own, iPad or phone or whatever you have, or you can print it out and put the notes on there, okay? But don't assume that you will find your answers on the PowerPoint because you may forget what you've just heard, okay? Okay. So the other thing that we're going to be doing in this class is we're going to draw. I am terrible at drawing. I tell people that I flunked kindergarten art, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to draw, okay? Because it is the easiest way for you to actually learn something that's not just a definition, okay? So I suggest that you, when you get your notepad, make sure you think about that you're going to be drawing in it, okay? All right. The other thing about this class is that I really do expect you to be here, and you are rewarded for being in this class, and I will explain how you are rewarded in a minute. And like I said, you will have your PowerPoints in advance of the class. Now, what I usually do is also put them here on this desktop, and then that way you can come up and get it after class if you want. And we can take turns putting our USB drives in and out if you want. Okay? Okay, there's your books. Just to remind you what they look like. This is advice from previous students. So, it says get in a study group. Expect to spend 2 hours a day outside of class studying. Start early. Read chapters and make up your own outlines and note cards before the topic comes up in class. Read the book and make your own notes. Make sure you understand all the concepts and not just the vocabulary. Don't wait till the last minute to study or you will fail. You guys can read the rest of these yourself, but you get the idea. This is a very difficult class, okay? Doesn't matter how nice I am, it's a very difficult subject, okay? It's a very difficult subject. Each week you are going to have a short assignment. This will be turned in on paper. You will not be emailing it to me. You may use Wikipedia or you may use any other internet website you want to get your answers. But the fact that you're writing it down for me means that you're not cutting and pasting. Okay? Nothing will have a long answer. Most of these will be 1 or 2 sentences. Okay? Nothing that's going to take you more than 15 minutes tops. Okay? The idea is just to help you get into the idea that you are going to be hunting for information as a doctor, that you are going to be trying to keep up with information as a doctor, and that you will constantly have things that you've never heard of come your way, and you're going to have to go hunt them down. Okay? So these assignments will be kind of peripherally related to the class. That means they are not going to necessarily be exactly about what we're talking about. They may be more clinical in nature, okay? And then each assignment will be due the next week, okay? So you have plenty of time. It's just something real quick that you're going to go hunt down so that you can practice getting used to finding information that is related to medicine, okay? Okay. I have a system that I call a mini quiz or an attendance quiz. And what this is it is in the class, usually right after we call roll, but sometimes we do it even before roll. If I find that a lot of people come to class late, we'll literally shut the doors and give the quiz, and then if you're not here, you don't get any credit for it. So usually these are 2 or 3 questions, so that's really short, okay? I usually give them on a card that's like a little teeny card, okay? It's just going to be an A, B, or C. It will be about what you learned the day before, okay? So this is how you keep up with class. This is how you remember that you're going to at least breeze through what you learned, so it's kind of on the top of your head when you come in. You get 1 point for your name. I should really say 1 point for your name and your roll number, because if I don't have your roll number, then I have to go hunt it down. So you get 1 point for your name. So you get a point for being here, okay? So you're already ahead because you got 1 right answer, all right? So the idea is to make sure that you keep up, not to make sure that I'm trying to make you guys all pull your hair out, okay? Okay. Then we have another one called a section quiz. I know this is different from how you are normally taught in China, and I understand that. This is more of an American way of teaching, okay, and I understand that. But I do not like the idea that you wait all the way till the end of the semester, and then I give you a test, and you all fail because you had no idea what you expected, okay? If you think I am kidding, the first section test last year, 80 students failed. 80. Okay? So I'd rather have you know how I test, and I want you to know what's expected of you. So at the end of each one of the units, we have a test. It's about 25 questions. Usually there is multiple choice and a couple of short answer. Sometimes there's drawing on the test. Hint, hint, okay? There's drawing on the test, okay? So what we're going to do is we will have 5 of these sections as we go through the class. One of your tests will be about the blood and circulation. One of them will be about the basic cell properties. One will be about the lungs. One will be about the renal and the metabolism. Okay, so that's how it works. What I do is I throw out the lowest score. So if you were one of those people who got an F on the very first test last year, then that meant I threw that score out, and you're still got a chance for a good grade in the class. You understand? But it also means that you can't mess up again. Okay? So wouldn't you rather save the time that you mess up till you have a section that you don't really understand very well? Or wouldn't you rather save it in case you get sick and you take the test and you do poorly because you don't feel good? Okay, so that's your hint. Okay, you're going to try and do well on the first test so that you can save that one that you throw out. Okay? Just because I call it a quiz and just because it is shorter than your final does not mean that it is easier. It'll be the same level of questions that you will get on your final. Okay? The same topics will come up. I'm not saying the exact same question will come on your final, but you will have the same topic exactly on your final, okay? And the other thing is I always give out a study guide before the test so that you know what's expected for you, okay? Cell phones. We love them and we hate them, and you know that, okay? The problem with a cell phone, especially a smartphone, is that you can take a picture with it, and then you can look at the information afterwards when you're supposed to be taking a test. Or you can text your friend and you can ask for an answer, and that is a problem. So specifically, when we have tests, there are no cell phones allowed. If you bring a backpack in, you'll sit it up here at the front. If you didn't bring a backpack and you just have your phone, you can stick it up here at the front until you're done. If I see you with a cell phone, even if you say, oh, I wasn't cheating, I wasn't using the cell phone, I have to assume that you are because you have it in your hands. Okay? So keep that in mind when you're taking a test that you're not going to have a cell phone. Okay? Otherwise, you're going to do what everybody does, and that's you're going to turn on vibrate when you're in the class or turn it off so that it doesn't disrupt my class. Okay? Okay. We have a no tolerance for cheating policy. Now you think some people are very clever and they think they can all this body language, that they can cheat with their other friends, or they can just have the girl that looks over the top of the other guy. Okay, so first of all, in my class last year, I caught 12 people cheating. Okay? I promise you, I know how clever and creative you can be when it comes to cheating, but I've been doing this long enough to figure it all out, okay? Plus, I have statistics on my side. So, that means if 5 of you have exactly the same answers and miss exactly the same ones, I can figure out that the chances of that is like 10,000 to 1. And then all 5 of you get called in for cheating, okay? So, don't try it. Don't try it, okay? That will make us all happy if you don't even try, okay? Just study and you'll do fine, okay? We also usually test in 2 rooms, so that means that we don't have to sit right next to somebody else. Like the typical protocols for testing, okay? This one says no food and drinks. That applies to the days you have tests. I do not care if you bring in, especially when it's hot, or, when it's cold, you could bring in some tea or coffee. Okay, so this is how we grade. Again, you're paying attention to this because it's probably not what you've seen before, okay? 25% attendance is those mini quizzes and that homework I was telling you about. So, every time you do your homework, you get a point, which is going to help out in case you missed a question on the mini quiz, right? Okay? So, that's the easy 25%. That's the one where you can get a really good score on your 25% and lift up anything else that might be a bad grade, okay? 50% is the final exam. If you have to have 60 to pass the class, and you do nothing in the class except take the final, can you pass? No, you can't. Okay, you can't. You must participate in the class in order to actually pass, okay? So keep that in mind because you don't want to think that you're waiting until the end before you're going to put in your study time. Okay, please ask questions. I know it's hard. I know a lot of times you're not going to feel, like you're dumb and nobody is going to ask that question or people are going to laugh at you, but don't. It's really important. This are very complicated. Physiology is very complicated. It's really okay if you don't catch it on the first time around. Okay? This is my email address, okay? Yahoo. I actually have a Gmail, but since it doesn't work half the time in China, we're not even going to try. I actually do have an office. It's over in the IFU building. That's the one at the front that's got the DNA thing on the side, okay? The 4th floor is where the physiology department is. You can come up and see me. If you don't want to ask a question in class, you can email it to me. This gentleman standing at the back is Yuan Laosha. He's my helper this semester. This is his email. He has a PhD in physiology. I'm sure he could answer your questions too. So, if you don't have a chance to ask me, you can always ask him. And he'll be here pretty much every day. So, if you get to know him because he's a really nice guy. Okay. So, let's see how much more we got here. Okay, next comes who are you? I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity to see one of these lovely lists. This is my list of students. I never knew until I came to China that alphabetizing was not a skill that they understood in the registrar's office. Do you guys know that? Okay, so 1, it's not alphabetized. 2, some people have their family name first, and some people have their given name first on the list. So when I'm looking at this, unless I already recognize that it's a last name, I'm not sure what to call you, okay? So you're going to help me. We're going to pass out some little cards, and I would appreciate it if on the card you would give me your roll number and your family name and your given name and what you'd like to be called. okay? Because I realize that what you are called by your friends may have nothing to do with your actual name. If you want to give me your email, you're welcome to do so. A lot of times people will ask me to send them their grade on the test or their grade at the final, and I'll be happy to do that. If you have something wrong and you have to go to the hospital, you may want to email me and let me know. So that way, if I have your email, I can track you down, okay? So let's pass these out, and you guys can write down who you are. Here. Just sort them, go backwards. Here. Just go backwards, and I'll grab you guys the other ones. And I have some more in case we run out. If you want to go towards the back, you can take those. I know on this question about why do you want to be a doctor, there are some people in this class who are secretly going to tell me that they're here because their parents told them they had to be. I'm a mother of 2 boys. I completely understand this concept. I hope that you want to be a doctor all on your own, and I hope that you feel dedicated about being a doctor, and maybe we'll convince you that it's a good idea. But if you really got here because your parents made you come, that's okay, okay? A lot of times when people start this class, they're not exactly sure what physiology is supposed to be. So first of all, let me tell you what physiology is not, okay? Physiology is not anatomy, right? You already had anatomy, correct? Okay, so that means I think that you already know the names of all the bones and all the muscles, right? Okay, you know the things like the names of the arteries and the names of the veins. And so when I talk about it, I don't have to assume that I have to teach that part, right? Okay, so that's not what physiology is. On the other hand, what physiology is, it's function. Function, okay? In Chinese, it's called shengli shui, which is life logic study, okay? So it's the functions inside your body, okay? Function is a series of feedback loops, which is why we draw pictures, okay? It's pathways and it's relationships, okay? So that means instead of going, oh, that's the heart and that's our answer, this equals heart, we'll be talking about all the functions of the heart. How does it beat? How does the electrical impulse get through? How much blood is actually going through it? How much pressure? How do you get to have blood pressure? Okay? That's what we'll be talking about. It's the foundation of medicine. And from this point forward, every teacher you have will assume that you understand how the body functions. Okay? So this is the point at which you can no longer say, I will study that next semester. Okay? You're going to learn the function, and you're going to know how the body works, and then you're going to go across to the hospital, and you're going to start on the clinical side, right? So if you're going to start on the clinical side, that means you better already know this part, okay? The thing about physiology is that pathophysiology is disease. So how do you know that somebody has a diseased heart unless you know how it's supposed to work in the first place, right? That's how you tell the difference. You understand the normal, and then you can understand the pathophysiology. Now, this class really isn't about pathophysiology, but we will talk a lot about clinical situations that involve pathophysiology. So you'll get into a lot of detail about disease in another class, but in this class we will talk about it a little bit because it's kind of what makes the physiology part real interesting, okay? Now, when we talk about physiology, we're talking about the inside of our bodies. And the inside of our bodies are completely separate from the environment around them, okay? Yes, we breathe in and we have oxygen go in. Yes, you eat food and it goes in and it comes out. But Those are all actually external components to your body. So when we talk about the internal environment, which is called the internal milieu or homeostasis, which is steady state of the internal environment, that is what good health is. Good health is the steady state on the inside of the body, okay? So a couple of people helped define these ideas, and they're actually not as old as you would think. One of the things that has made physiology difficult is because for so many years, there were laws and rules about not opening a dead body or not operating on the heart. And so there were limited amounts of ways for people to actually learn what was going on the inside, okay? Once people started to actually accept the idea that it was okay, for example, to do an autopsy when somebody died, try to figure out what went wrong, then we started to learn a whole lot more about what was going on inside the body. So most of the work in physiology didn't actually start going until about the 16, 17, 1800s, okay? Which seems like major ancient, but not when you consider how long the people have actually been around, okay? So there's an environment inside the body, and it's the body's job to make sure that environment stays good. So this guy, Charles Bernard, is the one that actually came up with this idea that we have a free and independent life in the internal milieu, that it's going on inside of our body, okay? And then this guy, who's a little more recent, Walter Cannon, he came up with the word homeostasis. And homeo means same, stasis means static, okay? So you're going to talk about something that's going to stay the same, steady state. When we talk about electricity, we usually talk about steady state, okay? So there's things that are changing in your body constantly, but their goal is always to stay in a normal range, okay? Whether it's your temperature, or whether it's the amount of fluid in your blood, or whether it is, the fact that you're standing upright and you're balanced, your muscles are balanced, it's a steady state, okay? So there's a lot of dynamic change. There's many things that are changing all the time, but your body wants to keep them in a normal range, like glucose in your body. We all know what happens when your glucose is too low or too high, okay? Okay, so when we talk about control mechanisms inside the body, that's kind of a general way to be talking about nerves and effectors and relays. And so this is kind of how we think of it in the general terms, okay? You have to have a sensor mechanism, okay? The sensor has to tell the body what's wrong. So that sensor mechanism may be a pain nerve when you step on something with your foot, okay? The sensor mechanism may be a sensor inside your body that notices that you have not enough oxygen. That's a chemoreceptor, okay? That's going to tell the rest of your body that something is out of the ordinary, okay? So there's a sensor mechanism, and it will notice when there's a change that's not normal. The next part is the integrating center. Sometimes the integrating center is your brain. Sometimes it's actually your spinal cord, okay? So there's got to be a place where the information gets relayed, and then there has to be a change made so that we can bring things back to the normal, okay, back to the homeostasis. The effector mechanism is the part that actually is going to make the change, okay? So if you think about it, if you step on something with your foot and you pull your foot back, the effector was the part that was the muscles involved with pulling your foot back, okay? All right. So this is a feedback process where we are going to make a change, and then sometimes the change will be a little bit too much or not enough, and then there has to be another sensor, or the same sensor has to send more information, and the brain has to say that's not correct, and then there has to be another effector or the same effector with more or less input, okay? So it'll be a little easier to describe when we're looking at the pictures, which are going to be coming back. Most of the effectors in your body are negative feedback. That means that they're going to go in the opposite direction. So your temperature goes high, the feedback and the system is going to bring it back in the opposite direction, right? What happens if you have positive feedback and you have a high temperature? then you just keep going higher, right? You just keep going higher. That's not what you want. You want to have it go the other direction, okay? So that's why it's called negative feedback, because it's going to go in the opposite direction of whichever direction you went, okay? There are a couple of positive feedback systems. Ladies, you're going to love this. The most famous one is childbirth, okay? So there's a hormone that is going to start contractions for childbirth. And the hormone just keeps getting more and more and more and more until the baby is born. And then it stops the whole system. Okay? So that's the positive feedback. It's just going to make the contractions come sooner. It's going to make the contractions harder. And it's not going to stop until the baby is out. Okay? So that's one of the few positive feedback systems that happens naturally in the body. Okay? Okay, so this is an idea of how the feedback works. In this one, it is about temperature, and the temperature is regulated by a part of the brain called the hypothalamus. So, if your temperature goes above normal, okay, then the brain, where the integrating mechanism is going to decide that it's time for you to have your blood vessels dilate, and that you're going to sweat, okay? So the body heat is going to be lost to the environment, which will bring your temperature down to normal, right? If your body temperature is too low, then you're going to have your blood vessels vasoconstrict, which means they're going to get smaller. They're going to bring the blood into the core of your body to keep your core warm. You're not going to sweat, and if it gets low enough, you're going to start to shake. And the reason you shiver or shake is because the muscles will make energy and make heat if they do that. So that is how they raise their temperature, okay? One time I went to the zoo and just happened to see this snake, and the snake was just shaking it was all coiled up, and it was shaking all the time. So we asked the zookeeper what was going on with this snake. So apparently the snake had an egg, and in order to keep the egg warm, they have to shake to bring their body temperature up so that they can keep their egg warm. So, and they don't, since they don't make their own heat, they get the heat from their environment. It's the only way they can do it. But anyway, that gives you the idea of how you can have a feedback to go in either direction and return us to the normal state. Okay, this is another one. This is a feedback system which we will talk about when we get to the endocrine system towards the end of the class. So we're just going to talk about it a little bit so that you get the general idea, because I think it's easier to understand with a picture. So your thyroid is located in your neck. Your thyroid hormone is very intimately responsible for the metabolism rate of your body, okay? It's very common for older women to have low thyroid. Okay, so what used to be thought of as, oh, the women are getting older, they're going to menopause, and they're getting fat, now they understand that that doesn't have to always happen just like that, that it actually might be a low thyroid. So your brain actually gets to say how much thyroid hormone there should be. So there's two sets of feedback. There's the amount of actual thyroid hormone, which goes back up into your brain, central nervous system input, and to your hypothalamus, which is where the thyroid releasing hormone is made. And then that hormone, thyroid releasing hormone, creates a second hormone called thyroid stimulating hormone. Thyroid stimulating hormone, which is also in your brain, is going to come into the blood system, go to the thyroid, and it's going to have your body make more thyroid hormone. Okay? So we have a long feedback loop that goes from the actual effective hormone back up to the brain, and we have a short feedback loop that measures the amount of stimulating hormone. And if there's a lot of stimulating hormone, then it'll say, oh, don't make any more, okay? So don't make any more thyroid releasing hormone, okay? So that's kind of how a feedback system works, okay? You're going to integrate the area with the effector with some kind of usually neural control, either in your brain or your spinal cord, and then you've got to have the sensor in the first place that figures out that something's not normal, okay? I already mentioned the positive feedback, that it's always stimulatory, that it amplifies the response. That's just now you have the slide that gives you the details of what I already said. So when you're studying, you can remember what this is all about. Sometimes these feedback systems are throughout your entire body, and sometimes they're not, okay? Sometimes they are on a cellular level. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I think we have enough class today that if you want to take a break for 10 minutes, we can, and then we'll come back, and I've got 2 little videos and the rest of this PowerPoint and your homework. So why don't you go ahead and take a break for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back.